What up, Pod Squad? Thank you so much for listening or watching or consuming this content today. Man, this is gonna be short. My voice is shot. I've been sick for like a week. Poor Matt. We rescheduled this day like three times because of me, and I still honestly shouldn't be here. But he gave me this delicious like Gatorade water bottle. Thanks, Matt. So let's talk about it. The hardest thing for a leader to do. I want to paint a picture for you here to start. So this is just for context. Like this is something I'm thinking about a lot as my company grows and I have people in positions to manage departments and specific tasks and responsibilities in the company compared to how my company ran like 5, 6, 7 years ago when it was just me and I was doing everything. This has been a very, I would say difficult, at times uncomfortable switch. It definitely puts me in an uncomfortable position because it goes against how I like to do things. But let's get into it. I want you to imagine you're going to an orchestra, because I'm sure, everyone listening to this just loves the orchestra. But even if you've never been, I'm sure you can imagine it. I've been to like a couple. Went to a big one once in Edmonton. That was cool. So I want you to imagine you're at the orchestra. So you got this assembly. I don't know what word I'm trying to go for. I guess that's the Dayquil talking. You got all these musicians who are assembled on stage, right? And depending on the size of the orchestra, that could be a lot of people, man. You could have like 30, 40, 50 musicians on there. So they're all playing their songs. They're going through it. But there's one guy who is standing at the front of all those musicians. And he's on this little podium pedestal thing. And he's got this wooden stick in his hand. Maybe he's got two of them. And his back is to the audience the entire time, right? So you know who I'm talking about, right? So this is the conductor of the orchestra. Now, if you're like me and you're, not a huge orchestra fan, you don't really know much about it, it'd be pretty easy to be a little bit skeptical of this dude who's got his back faced to you, who's just kind of like flailing his arms around. Because as a kid, I always wondered, like, what does that guy do? Like, aren't these professional musicians? Do they really need like Bob there with his like fancy stick, like flailing it around? This little side point turns out, yeah, you definitely do. In fact, go ask professional musicians in an orchestra like that. What happens if there's not someone to lead that orchestra into the piece that they're trying to present to the audience? It doesn't work. Just because you have skilled people and musicians doesn't mean that they can harmoniously be brought together 20, 30, 40 at a time without someone to lead, right? So that is the job of the conductor. He is the leader. He's making sure that everything is on point, on time. Everyone is doing their thing. Now, even if you've never been to the orchestra, could you imagine that partway into the performance, the conductor jumping off his podium and going into the orchestra, grabbing an instrument out of someone's hands and saying, hey, I got this, let me do this, and then starts playing the instrument, right? That would be ridiculous, right? It would throw off the entire rest of the orchestra just for that conductor to hop in and try to like save the day. Now, maybe the conductor thinks he's doing something really good, like, this musician's struggling, I'm just going to jump in and do that, or I can do this piece better. I can do this violin piece better than the way this person's going to do it, so I'll just hop off and do it. Or maybe they see a couple problems, and rather than stay committed to conducting the orchestra, they're like, I'm just going to jump in and go solve those problems. Right? Optically, it would be hilarious to see a conductor do that. Even if you don't really appreciate why they exist in an orchestra, they simply don't do that, right? So, without the conductor, chaos. With the conductor, harmony. But the conductor, even though he's got the whole vision of the music and he keeps everything going the way it's supposed to, does not do the thing that he's leading the people to do. That is why this episode is called The Hardest Thing for a Leader to Do. One of the hardest things for a leader to do is to not jump in and do the thing. So this happens in business all the time. Especially, guys, if you're listening to this and you're a founder and you now have hiring people, like this happens all the time. And it gets really difficult too if you start hiring people and they're used to running everything through you, and they always come to you with questions, and now you have a bit of a system where now you have like frontline managers or mid-level managers or someone that you want your people to go to instead, but because they know you, they always go to you. And then you instinctively, because you were like a business owner and you used to do this and you know exactly how to solve this problem and you probably could do it better, you jump in and you do it and you break the whole process down because you are focused on doing and not leading. Sometimes the demands of a business owner and a leader is to not do the thing, not solve the problem, not answer that question, and instead direct people to what they're supposed to do. Go to the person they're supposed to talk to. Follow the process that they're choosing not to follow. If you signal to your employees in your company that you are always there to be there to solve a problem, you're going to live a stressful life, man. And like, I've felt this. Like, I'm speaking from a place of like, I get this completely because I'm I'm an easygoing guy. I like to solve people's problems. I don't want to see any of my employees upset or bothered or whatever. So for a long time, I would say like 2 years ago in particular, we had a culture where I started bringing in people to be mid-level managers and department managers and foremen and project managers and operations manager. And whenever like a situation would come up that somebody didn't like, let's say one of our production technicians just didn't like a decision that was made by a project manager or an operations manager, like technicians would just walk into my office door. And like for a moment, that doesn't actually bug me that a human being walked into my office like that. I'm not that pretentious or douchey that like, no, like that's okay. But if you're trying to grow a company, and you have a policy where anyone in the company can just run to the business owner to get their problem solved, you are breaking down the process and you're jumping in like that conductor jumping off the podium to go into the orchestra. Like you're jumping in to go solve a problem that you probably shouldn't be jumping in to go solve, right? Process saves companies really well for that. The hardest thing for a leader to do sometimes is to just not do. It can go against every instinct. So there's usually a few reasons, and I have 4 of them written down here, like 4 reasons of like why so many leaders refrain from letting go and why they are still involved. They're still that conductor jumping in to save problems in the business. So number 1, they feel like whoever they have in place to do this thing already won't meet their standard, or maybe they just feel like as a business owner, I can just do it better, right? Number 2, they might feel like, well, I don't have anyone capable right now to do this thing, so I have to do it. Excuse me. Sorry, I warned you I was sick. Don't have anyone capable, number 2. Number 3, a business owner or a leader might say, well, I don't really have time right now to train anyone on how to do this thing. Right? So they hold back and the business owner ends up doing it themselves. Or number 4, they're like, it just takes too long for people to do it. So like, I'll just do it because I'm faster at it, right? So all 4 totally not valid reasons why a leader might jump in. So I want to just quickly unpack a little bit for each of those reasons. Now, if I were to ask you, to you guys listening out there, as you heard those 4 reasons, ask yourself, like, what is my go-to reason why I'm not doing an effective enough job as leading and training and delegating, authority in the company? What's the thing that trips you up the most? Because for me, I can tell you right now, it's like, oh, it's time. Like, dude, I don't have the time to train people right now, so I just got to do it myself, right? So do you fear that it won't meet your standard? Do you fear that you don't have anyone capable? Do you think you don't have time? Or do you think that people just take too long? Like, if you could put yourself in one of those buckets, excuse me, put yourself in one of those buckets, like, which one of those is the thing that trips you up the most? So I'm going to unpack each one just briefly, and hopefully you hear something in there that's like, man, that makes sense to me and I can do better. So number 1, if you think they take too long to do the task. I know it was the last thing I mentioned, but I'm going to start with that one. They take too long to do the task. So basically, as a business owner, you see somebody doing something. Maybe you're on a job site and you're like, hey, go spray those stencils. And you look at them and you're like, oh my goodness, they're only like a third of the way done. I would have been done twice by now. So you jump in to take over that task because you're just like, I could do that quicker. Holy Matt, you going to edit all these out?
I'm going to try.
Oh, man. Violently ill today. I don't even know you. I don't think you have to.
No?
I don't think so. People can just enjoy it. I'm going to try and not die here.
Okay. No cuts.
No cuts.
Start to finish.
So people aren't doing it fast enough. So like you get frustrated because you see people not doing it as quickly as you can. Your spreadsheets and your systems for your business suck, and you might be losing a ton of money in your paving or your pavement maintenance business. Look, our company recently switched to OneCrew, and it is the only industry-specific, all-in-one platform for paving companies, for pavement maintenance companies, striping companies. It doesn't matter if it's like the sales cycle or if you're estimating or even if you're trying to manage your crew, OneCrew has features for all of that. It is unbelievably effective. So if right now you're doing a lot of your estimating on spreadsheets and at the end of the day or the end of the year, you don't even know if you're making a lot of money, I guarantee you OneCrew will help you. It is so easy to make more money with this software. You'll love it. Here's the best part. Listeners of this show get $500 off of the setup fee if you go to GetOneCrew.com/stripe it. $500 off of your setup fee. Take a free demo and have a look for yourself, man. GetOneCrew.com/stripe it. All right. We had a little cut there because I had a coughing fit. So here's the 4 things unpacked. I'm smiling and laughing because like I had a coughing fit and we had to pause, and now I've got a lozenge in my mouth and I'm powering through for the podcast. All right. So let's look at the first one here. They take too long to do the task. So originally that was the last thing I mentioned, but I'm going to start with this one. If you feel compelled to jump in and save the day in your company because somebody that you hired is just taking too long, you kind of need to give your head a shake a little bit. Like really. So like it's amazing how a business owner will get frustrated that an employee who's been there for like 2 months for some reason can't do the thing that I've been doing for 6 years as fast as I can. Well, no duh. It's a marathon, not a sprint. But we get a little hazy as business owners because we're always worried about like the cash flow situation and how, the margins on a job and we got a full schedule. And then you see an employee, go spray some stencils in a parking lot. And they're like, they take some 6 hours to what you could have done in like 2 hours. And you just get frustrated because you're like, oh, these people, why are they going so slow? And so if you do not come to terms with both your mindset that obviously employees are not going to be as fast as you, like get used to this. Ideally, when your company grows, you'll get to the point where you do hire people who are better than you at stuff. That's the goal. But it's not just a mindset thing too. It's also like is your pricing allow for it to be slower? Like when you start a business, sealing or striping, and it's you on the tools, yeah, you probably went super fast. So you built this whole system of estimating jobs like, oh, I see all those stencils. Yeah, that'll take me like 2-3 hours, right? But now you have to make a subtle shift. And it's actually not even that subtle. You have to shift the way you estimate things if we're talking about production, because you're going to be hiring people to do that. And they're not going to do it in 2 to 3 hours like you could. So a lot of times the prices that a newer company charges when the owner's out there working are less than bigger companies. So you probably have the room to add an extra like 2-3 hours into it to account for an employee doing those stencils for you. But business owners, they get so caught up in like, man, they're just going so slow. It's like they think an employee is intentionally dragging their heels or going slow. When the reality is, if you see an employee like dragging their heels, they probably weren't trained properly and they're super uncomfortable, or they just don't have clear instructions. Like they're not sure. They're not sure how long it's supposed to take. So like better training is the answer. So how do you actually solve this? Yeah, better training, like I said, number 1. Number 2, like be aware of yourself. Like if you can't handle things being done like at a slower speed than you, maybe don't hire that person, because you're going to have to come to the terms with hiring people as an investment into getting more leverage to grow the business. And when you see those initial inefficiencies, like if you can't handle that, it's just gonna mess you up. So create clear terms with your employees, like benchmark them. This is how long things should take based on their current skill. Don't give them an outrageous benchmark. And then just gradually like increase their complexity and what they're allowed to do. So start small, start simple, let them build up some confidence in what they're doing. Man, it's lozenges working. All right, number 2, hardest thing for a leader to do is not do. And the second reason why a lot of leaders jump in and do is because they're like, well, I don't have anyone capable, right? So really there's like a trust issue here. So I'm going to summarize one of my favorite stories I've heard from Simon Sinek, okay? This is 100% true. He did a speaking engagement, Simon did, years ago in Las Vegas. I was not there. I just heard the story. He stayed at one of the hotels that he likes to stay at. If I remember, it was Four Seasons. He's a big fan of Four Seasons. And he's like, the reason why I go to the Four Seasons is because everyone there is awesome and great staff, blah, blah, blah. He goes down to the coffee shop the morning he's there, and he meets this barista named Noah, okay? And Noah is a super cool human dude, okay? So Simon's telling this story. He's like, Noah's like super happy, super cheerful, strikes up a conversation with Simon. He's making him his coffee. They're talking, and Simon's really impressed by this. And if you know Simon Sinek, his whole career is predicated on why people work and how they, choose the places they work at. So he says, as I do, he's like, I asked Noah, like, hey, well, just curious, why do you work here? What do you love about your job? And Noah says, well, I love my job. The people here are great. He says, when I walk down the halls of the Four Seasons, the managers, like any manager, will stop and ask how I'm doing, ask if I need anything, ask me how my day's going. And he's like, they're just clearly there to support me. And then he tells Simon, I have another job where I'm also a barista at a different hotel. I think if I remember, it was Caesar's Palace. And he's like, there, I keep my head down. He's like, I try to get through my day as quickly as possible because there, managers are always looking to see where you're messing up or to see if you've made a mistake. And so he's like, there, I just keep a low profile. I get my job done. I would rather just work here at the Four Seasons. The point of this story was pretty powerful. Simon's like, if you're a manager at Caesar's Palace and you see this Noah guy, do you think he's going to be like a great employee? Like, do you think a manager would assess him as a great employee? Probably not, because he's just like got his head down. He just kind of like does his thing. He doesn't seem to be like a team player, right? But that exact same person who's doing the exact same job at a different company, at a different culture, absolutely thrives and loves it there. And if he had it his way, Noah would work there all the time. So don't get me wrong. Like sometimes we make poor hiring decisions, right? And we just don't get great people. But often what a business owner does is we form a narrative of our employees as an underperformer. So we have this team of people and we're like, well, I don't have anyone capable for this job or this task, so I'm just going to do it, right? And that narrative, that's what Caesar's Palace had with this Noah in the story that Simon Sinek told, is like they had a narrative that he just like keeps his head down. Like, so the point is, don't be quick to label your people as not capable. Instead, point the finger around and ask yourself, how am I doing training and developing my talent? Like, do I actually not have anyone capable? Did I actually make a poor hiring decision? Or am I just telling myself that like, oh yeah, these people I had to fire them because they sucked, and good help is impossible to find. It's a big red flag when somebody says that. So how do we solve that if we feel like we have underperformers, we don't have anyone capable? Couple things. Like, number one, am I putting them into roles where they actually succeed? That is hugely important. Like, or am I trying to force them? Like, are they a square peg and I'm trying to force them into a round hole? This is not going to work. It's not a competency issue. Like, are you putting your people in roles where they can actually do well, right? What about awareness? Like, do I have an environment where people are actually okay to make mistakes? Or like, are they constantly living in fear that if they make a mistake, that you as the business owner are just going to freak out at them, right? That's a terrible environment to work at. You want your people to view a mistake they make as an opportunity to improve. And then last one, like, can you just give your people some grace? Again, when we form a narrative of an employee as like, this person's an underperformer, this person's a problem, this person's got an attitude, or whatever, it could be anything. We inherently start looking to find those things in their behaviors because our brain has told us that's who this person is. And the right thing to do is instead try to catch them in positive things, catch their positive behaviors, see the good things they're doing. Because if you do that, you can use the negative things as coaching opportunities instead of you just being like, well, there's another thing. This person is incapable, right? All right. My throat's hanging on for dear life. I got 2 more. I'm going to go through these a little bit quicker. All right. Hardest thing for a leader to do is not do. Third reason why they might be jumping in to do stuff is they feel like, well, I just don't have the time to train right now. So this is me. This is the one I struggle with the most as growing a very rapidly growing company, especially a couple of years ago. Time was the mortal enemy, and I refused to sacrifice like my family time and things like that. So time was very, very precious to me. So sometimes we get caught in a loop where we're just like, man, there's so much work to do. There's so much jobs to do. There's tasks to be done. And we just feel like, well, we don't have time to train because we have to focus on those key tasks. So the way that my coach explained this to me, I think it was 2021 when he said this to me. He's like, imagine a dude running beside a bicycle on the side of the road. Like, I think I've said this analogy before. Imagine a guy running beside a bike and you see him and you stop him and you ask him like, hey, what are you doing? Why are you running beside your bike? And the guy's like, I'm behind. I'm late for an appointment. I don't have time to like put on my helmet and get on the bike. Right? You would think that person's nuts because like obviously you just invest the 15 seconds to put your helmet on, get on the bike, and you will actually get to your appointment quicker. But instead, like it would be really foolish for someone to be like, well, I don't want to invest the 15 seconds. To the same extent, that's often what happens with training. Is like if you feel that you don't have time, you're so busy running beside the bike. And you need to be okay a little bit with letting the world burn, that things aren't going to be done perfectly, but it's okay. This is especially true if it's like a customer. Like I'm not advocating don't look after your customers, but like if you just play with a short-term mindset where like every customer has to be looked after, like you're going to be sacrificing your people ahead of like just so that you can serve every customer, which is a terrible place to be because if you can't serve your people and train them, then like you're not going to have any customers in the future to deal with anyways. You have to prioritize training for your people. So cultivate patience, develop a long-term view. So analyze your time. This would be a couple things on how you can solve this. And this is something I've had to be very intentional with. Analyze my time. Like what activities am I doing now that I could like just simply get rid of so that I could focus on training and focus on helping my people. Number 2, be willing to let it burn. Like customers do not come first. And then number 3 is just reframing your mind, like what training is. Like training, I think a lot of times as a business owner, we think that we're training someone to get our time back at like a 1-to-1 cost. So in other words, like it takes me 10 hours to do this thing. So if I train someone like, 5 hours to do it, it's so that I can get like that time back at like a 1-to-1 cost. But it's really not. Like effective training in a company is a multiplier because it's going to show that person how to train so that in the future they can train other people with parts of their job. So like you build a culture of training and it doesn't just become like, well, I trained you so that I don't have to do it. Training becomes part of what you do so that you can have a culture where people train each other, which is really important. And number 4, this is when I sent out a survey to business owners, this was the number 1 answer as to why, like the number 1 thing that they felt that was most difficult for not jumping in and doing is it won't meet my standard, or I can just simply do that task better. Super common. So I love the analogy of the U.S. Navy SEALs for this. So the U.S. Navy SEALs, they have commanders, right, who run missions all the time. They have for decades. And what the U.S. Navy SEALs realize is that if you only reward the outcomes of commanders, so let's say they have a mission, mission success, or on the flip side, a mission failure. If you only reward or discipline based on the outcomes, something happens when you do that. what's going to happen is inevitably you're going to eventually reward a commander who had mission success, but is just not a good commander. Like maybe they got fortunate, maybe the team bailed them out. And conversely, even the best commanders in the U.S. Navy SEAL program are not perfect. Sometimes they have mission failure. And if you discipline based on that, even though they tried to do everything correctly, you're only disciplining the outcome and not the fact that they're still a great commander. So, why do I say all this? When you see people in your company, not doing it the way that you can do it, and your mindset, your first instinct is like, well, I should just jump in and do it. What we need to do is shift our mindset into like, I don't want to reward the outcomes. I want to reward the behaviors. Which of my people are trying to do it better? How can I reward them for trying to do it better? You have to instill a culture where growth of their personal growth and their professional development and their skills development is encouraged. So if you can just rewire your brain, like, I don't need to just jump in because I can do it better. What I need to do is build a strong bench of people and develop their talent so that when they fail, I don't just discipline them, I pick them up and I say, try again. And like, this is another thing Simon Sinek says a lot too, is like, the hallmark of a great leader is one who can see people fail at a task and pick them back up and say, here's how you're going to do it next time. And it's this constant process of watching your people fail and then helping them back up. And then they fail and then you help them back up. And you keep that going so that you build a culture where outcomes are not rewarded. The behaviors of trying to improve are rewarded. That's really what you want to do. So, I'm going to leave it at that. Otherwise, I'll keep talking about this forever. Those are the 4 big things that make it really hard for leaders to not jump in and do it. So ask yourself which one of those are the ones that you struggle with the most, and then get really intentional on how you can avoid that. Because any one of these 4 reasons, like I would say they probably would come up for most business owners at some point. Like, this person, I can just do it better, or I just simply don't have the time. The faster you can come to terms with like the roadblock for you as to why those reasons are coming up and how you can overcome that will greatly increase the speed of you growing and scaling the quality of your people and therefore your business as well. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for bearing with me through the cough, and we'll talk to you next week.